in Eastern Europe was under the influence of the Soviet Union and communism following the success of their army after World War II. Gorbachev was in power in 1989, and conditions were changing, but still had the residue of communism. We spent 3 months in Eastern Europe, in Poland, Belarus, Russia, Ukraine, Czechoslovakia, Austria, and Hungary. Except for the Soviet Union, we traveled on our own and enjoyed every minute of it. Since the trip was extensive, it will include 2 sessions. The first session in Poland, where we spent most of our time. The Berlin Wall came down about 2 weeks after we left, which gives you a sort of the impression of the time. Professor of Slavic Studies was going to lead a group to a summer school session of the Catholic University of Lublin in Lublin, Poland. He was a graduate of that school and took groups there for a number of years. I had relatives in Poland and had been eager to go. My family was Polish. There was an abundance of Polish jokes. Being a student of history, I was eager to find the facts. While flying, it was a thrill to see the Baltic Sea and the countries bordering it. It was like looking at a large map as we approached land. We landed in Warsaw. Military personnel were at the gates. The building was painting dismally, and the customs agent smoked and seemed to be bothered to do his job. The people seemed to be unhappy. We later learned that the Russian influence was still a large factor, and people resented it. A bit of background history. In 1791, the Polish Parliament wrote a constitution that any bill could pass with a majority vote, but it freed peasants from bondage to landowners. This caused an alarm to the wealthy families and would end slave labor of their peasants. Poland was then invaded by Germany, Austria, and Russia in 1791, and ceased to be a sovereign nation for 123 years. It became a sovereign nation in 1918 as part of the Treaty of Versailles following World War I. As the country was in the process of normalizing, it was brutally attacked by the German army in 1939. The Russians also attacked. The country was devastated. After the German army was defeated, the Catholic University of Lublin organized quickly before the Russians entered Lublin. Thus, the university avoided communist doctrine in their curriculum. We boarded a bus to take us 105 miles to Lublin. Lublin appeared to be a relatively nice city. We were taken to our dorm, which was a nice large room on the 2nd floor. The dorm was about a mile from the school. Shopping was a dismal experience. Stores were quite bare. Evidently, some Communist Party hack was making the decisions about what would be manufactured and distributed. The person selling an item referred you to a cashier who took your money, evidently an attempt at full employment. Toilet paper was not available. Bread was always available. However, there were stores called Superior, in which you could buy almost anything. They would not accept Polish money. They accepted American dollars, French francs, and German marks. Bus fare was 1/2 cent in American money. The economy was all screwed up, and the people strongly resented it. One communist person said that trying to communize Poland was like putting saddle on a cow. The classes were in English with some Polish electives. The curriculum included current events, history, culture, art, politics, music, dance, song, and movies. After a brief interview, we were assigned to classes. On weekends, we were taken on trips throughout the country. The students were from many countries, from Ireland to Russia, US and Canada. The students were an interesting, pleasant group. The Catholic University of Lublin. Breakfast with Wisconsin group in the background. The Barak, or Rathskeller, where we drank beer, discussed, and sang and danced. Our teachers, Elizabeth, Margaret, and Eva. The school bus took us on tours of the country in this bus. We took the trip to a pretty town, was Wolfka, sorry, on the Vistula River. It was named for a Polish king. Sue bought a painting, which hangs in our living room. An overview of Kazimierz with the Vistula River in the background. I often thought I'd love to canoe that river if I had the time. A good old horse and wagon. Notice the wagon is big enough for a lot of cargo. Gate to a mansion at Kozłówka. And this is the mansion. I suspect that the money that was made for this mansion was probably on the backs of peasants who were essentially slaves. We're traveling north to and arrived at the walled city of Torun. This is the gate of the city. Each of the old cities had high watchtowers with sentries looking for potential enemies. This is a view from the tower. The Vistula River is in the left background. We're looking at a church, actually. This is a view from the tower. This is, and a statue of Copernicus is here, and his home was in this building. We are leaving Torun and are heading toward the Marlborough Castle. It was originally called Marienburg for St. Mary's, and was built in 1406. It was claimed to be the largest castle ever built, covering about 52 acres. The knights were part of the Crusaders, urged by the Pope to drive the Muslims out of Jerusalem. The Crusaders were ruthless and slaughtered many Muslims with the sanction of the Pope. The Teutonic Knights attempted to conquer Poland, but were defeated in the Battle of Grunwald. The order eventually disintegrated. A view of the drawbridge to the castle. A view through a window to the castle. After leaving Marlborough, we went to the seaport at Sopot. These are a few of our classmates relaxing at the beach at Silpat. Oh, a popular recreation, as you can see, these people relaxing in the sun. The town gate, city gate at Gdańsk, it was formerly Danzig, the free city of Danzig. The city hall, with, of course, a watchtower up on top, which was typical, with a statue of Neptune in front. And of course, Neptune, representing water, Danzig was on the Baltic Sea and had a lot of boat traffic. This is artwork at the post office at Danzig, and it is reputed to be the start of World War II. It is quite a fascinating piece of art. We are now at the shipyards, Lenin shipyards in Gdańsk, and you can see that things are changing with that sign of Solidarność, which meant solidarity. There was an uprising by the shipyard workers against the communist rulers, and a number of them were killed. This is a memorial to the shipyards that were killed. Here is me at the seat in the boardroom of Solidarity, and that's where Lech Walesa would have sat. We are now going back to Lublin, and to the concentration camp on the outskirts of Lublin. Being curious, I took a bus ride to the site. The guides were all East German, and the site was a real eye-opener. It was opened in October 1941 as a forced labor camp. It was converted to an extermination camp for Jews and many non-Jews. It was then converted to a prisoner of war camp for captured Russian prisoners. There were virtually no facilities, and many died of exposure or starvation. It was liberated intact by the advancing Soviet army. The number of persons that died at the camp is probably in the order of 130,000. According to the information at the museum, Hitler planned to deport all Poles into Russia and make Poland a part of Germany. Later, the entire class toured the camp. This is an entrance to the camp with a guard tower. The entire camp was made of wood, evidently hastily built. The covered urn with the ashes of people that were cremated at the crematorium. The cover is an artistic depiction of the horrible things that occurred there. This is a detail of the urn cover, and in Polish language it says, "Be vigilant that this will never happen again." Lublin, this is a cremation oven. Lublin was a rabbinical center, and this is a Jewish cemetery, and you can see a shell hole going through that headstone. A memorial to the Jews that were exterminated at Majdanek. This is the remains of a synagogue, Jewish synagogue, and the plaque reads that it was bombed during a service. This is an outdoor theater in Lublin, in which there was entertainment every Saturday. Various groups would come, choral groups and actors, etc. And it was very, very interesting, a nice way to spend an afternoon. There was a Russian group that came up there, and they were sounding rude. These are classmates starting at a pilgrimage to Częstochowa to the location of the Black Madonna, which was the most revered icon in Poland. It's a distance of about 186 miles and takes approximately 10 days. We sing and pray and are supported by people along the way. A group that are assembled in the town square, and I suspect that most of them are going for recreation, as well as perhaps to see Częstochowa. This is the gate to the monastery, and up above is a copy of the icon of the Black Madonna. This is the ceiling of the church at the monastery, and you can see the ceiling is quite elaborate. This is the actual icon of the Black Madonna. It is in a room, of course, with lots of people, and the guide told us that no Westerner could be in there for more than 15 minutes. And I couldn't stand it for more than 5. And I don't know why. I never found out, but I suspect it must be the ventilation. We're on the tower of the monastery, and this is a walkway that is 360 degrees, used by sentries to view any potential enemies on the horizon. This young lady is from Moscow, and she knew we were going to Moscow, and she gave us her address and telephone number. Unfortunately, we never had the time to do it. Here's a view from the tower, looking down at the crowd, and you recall that we entered at that gate. Back in Lublin. This is our teacher and his mother invited us to dinner. And it was a very pleasant experience. Her husband was really a physician, and he was also an artist. And he made more money as an artist than he did as a physician. Fine dinner, and we really enjoyed it. This is the view from the window of their unit. This is graduation day. Actually, it's a big deal with this group. Actually, it's about a 6-week experience, and these are most of the people from Wisconsin, and This person here is an attorney who is the provost for the Archdiocese of Chicago. Another group of graduates. This person here was from the Sudetenland, which is in Czechoslovakia. During the war, this family and neighbors were, they were all German, and they opted to join Germany during the war. After the war, the Czechs made them go to Germany, saying that if you want to be German, go to Germany. This is also, the Sudetenland was awarded to Hitler by Neville Chamberlain, the English Prime Minister, with the comment of his that it will be peace in our day, which of course was a foolish statement. This is Professor Mikosh, his wife, and the head of the university. He later became a delegate for the city of Milwaukee. He became provost in the city of Milwaukee. One of our friends giving a talk about his experience in school. In the background are replicas of student countries' flags. There are 16 countries involved. We now go to the location of my family. It is very close to the southern end of Poland. This is a photograph of my cousin Genevieve, the last remaining person in my generation, and we're at the grave of my grandmother, Anna, who died in 1927. That was the year I was born. My grandfather, Albert, was killed in World War I in a battle between the Austrians and the Russians in 1915. The battleground was around their home. He was buried in a mass grave in an unknown location. His son, Adam, my oldest uncle, was conscripted by the Austrian army and was wounded, but made it home and died in his own bed. This is the only location that the Russians had much success in World War I, because the army facing them were conscripts of Austria, and to a certain extent some of them thought that the Russian army might be a salvation to them. This is a grave vault of the Coco family. My cousin did not know any of them were in there. New bodies are placed on top, and the older bodies are lowered. I don't know how it's done, but it's kind of an interesting concept. We went to the local parish, and this is the pastor giving family information, including births, deaths, marriages, confirmations, etc. This was before there were any official places that collected this information. They were all collected in the church. And it was the start of my pursuits in genealogy. I spent 2 separate weeks in Salt Lake City at the Mormon Genealogy Library. And interestingly enough, microfilm was available for all the records that I had seen in Poland. Photograph of my cousin family, cousins, family, with this being her daughter and her husband. And in her daughter's husband and her son came to the U.S., worked in construction for a while, and earned some money to come back to Poland. One Sunday morning, my cousin's daughter was heating a pitchfork on a gas flame. It looked a little bit strange, but later I found that the family was preparing a cookout primarily in our honor. The pitchfork was used to heat sausages on the fire. Vodka and fruit juice were shared by adults. Really was a great taste. They take vodka and they put various types of fruit juice in it, and it was quite good. The potatoes on the fire there were the only baked potatoes we had 3 months in Eastern Europe. You could find all kinds of potatoes. You could find French fries, potato salad, boiled potatoes, potatoes au gratin, etc., but no baked potatoes. Evidently, they didn't believe in eating potato skins. We are now headed to Krakow and to Wawel Castle. Wawel Castle, very interesting structure, and Karnov has been the seat of knowledge for centuries. It's on the Vistula River and is the second largest city in Poland. It's an important cultural center, and at that time had a population of about 800,000. It was spared in World War II because it became a German government center. Pope Paul John II was Archbishop of Krakow and the first non-Italian pope in 455 years. A bell tower in the castle. An piece of artwork in the castle. Tomb of one of the Polish kings, similar to the tombs that you see in Westminster Abbey in London of English kings. This is the square, the town square in Krakow, and every day there's a bugle that sounds. It warns the people of the invasion of the Mongols. And the bugle sounds and suddenly it stops, depicting that the bugler was shot with an arrow before he finished. This is a triptych built by a German artist, and it has 200 carved figures. It was carved around 1480. And it is 3 sections. As you can see, these are leaves here and here, and they're closed except for ceremonies. This is the church in which it's housed. Outside was a very cute array of teachers walking kids, apparently kindergarten kids. And you can see that all the girls are holding the dresses of the one before them. That way they kept them all together. There's 2 boys, but they're being held in hand by the teacher. Jagiellonian University which is the oldest university in Europe. My cousin's grandson received a PhD from the university and received an offer to teach at Ohio State University. Krakow has become a computer software center and is tied to several U.S. firms, including Google, etc. It is attempting to be the Silicon Valley of Europe. So, at the gate to Auschwitz, as you can see, it's the main gate. Reading, work will make you free. A view between the barracks, and as you can see, they are all built of masonry, indicating that the structures were meant to be permanent. We will skip the horrible elements in the place. We now go to a place called Joanna Wola, the birthplace of Chopin. And here is his birthplace home, and the windows are open, and the curtains are drawn. You can't see inside, but it's getting prepared for a concert, a Chopin concert. And this is the audience. Very, very interesting experience. We are now heading toward Warsaw. And this is Sue on the balcony of an apartment in Warsaw. We had the use of this apartment. It was owned by a visiting professor from Warsaw Polytechnical Institute, and he owned it. They stayed at, when he was in Milwaukee, he stayed at our home on the east side. And he had been he was a professor, visiting professor at UWM for a number of weeks. And we had the use of this apartment, which we were very grateful for. The town square in Warsaw. In there was a restaurant called the Bela Zizek. And to Poles it was very expensive, but to us it wasn't. I loved their mushroom soup, and I had about 3 bowls. And when I asked them about the name, they said, well, this was an animal that when we said, I asked, what happened to the animal? They said, well, he died when he saw the bill. Sue and fellow students under a statue of Chopin in the Warsaw Park. This is a group of people waiting for the concert. This included Japanese students, really cute kids. The pianist receiving flowers after the concert. This is a tune of the Unknown Soldier, and you can see the perpetual flame in the background. A view of Warsaw from the Russian-built Palace of Culture. Residents felt the best view of Warsaw was from that building, because if you do that, you can't see the building. This is a Jewish monument to the Jews that were deported from Warsaw. A view of the Warsaw Monument uprising. And right here, and this is a close-up of it. The Poles thought they would free Warsaw as the Russians reached the river opposite to Warsaw. The Poles attempted to drive the German army, hoping to get some help from the Russians. Stalin forbid the Russians from helping. With relatively little arms, they were slaughtered. They used German helmets, but they tied a ribbon around it, indicating they were not German troops. The German army then destroyed Warsaw block by block. We now go to Cheshire. Before that, there was an election coming up, and this was their idea of advertising the photos of candidates. We now go to Cheshire on the border of Czechoslovakia, and this is the border point between Czechoslovakia and Poland. This is the Zare family. Now, this fellow here, his wife went to America and took her son with him, and he was trying to get to America and was hoping that we would help them with getting a visa. He was an engineer, very intelligent and a good prospect. So we went with him to the embassy in Warsaw and talked to them, and they said as long as one member of the family, the husband or the wife, they would not grant a visa because there was a fear that they would stay there. So we tried the legation in Krakow, got the same story. We have taken this limousine to Warsaw to board a plane, to board a train to go to Minsk in Belarusia. Thank you.